Welcome everyone to another unboxing. So today we're looking at Warhammer 40K's Fireteam. So what is Fireteam? Fireteam is, well, if you think of Kill Team is a stripped down version of 40K itself, so Warhammer 40,000 itself, where you can make your squad, your team, whatever you want to equip them out like. So you could have a sniper, a heavy weapons guy, you can mix and match. And for me personally, I'm not a massive fan of Kill Team. I've played a few games. It's not bad, but for me personally, I like playing 40k, if there's time, in like a 2,000 point game, something like that, practicing for a local tournament. But I do see the appeal of Kill Team. I really enjoy customizing models, and just that alone makes me want to make Kill Teams. Not necessarily play the game, but I just like the idea of, because I'm a bit of a Blood Angels fan, as you probably well know by now, having someone with like a custom position on the model, look a bit more mean, look a bit more badass than normal, just a standard position, a marine holding a bolter. I like to customize it a bit, some grenade pouches, weapons pouches, whatnot. But Fireteam is a stripped down version of Kill Team. So it's a box in its own right, very much like when you first pick up your Shadespire and things like that. You can play straight out the box. And it says here, for 2 players, 45 minutes. And if you're anything like me, it'll probably take longer. Not because of rules are complicated. It's purely because I'm terrible at making decisions. And age is 12 and up. But I still think people younger can play it and wrap their head around the rules. But 12 and up is perfectly fine. Not necessarily for the rules, possibly the fact that it could be a bit, it's been known to be grimdark, it's been known to be not exactly the nicest millennium, the 41st millennium. It's all war, all the time. So, we'll have a look at this box, and something winds me up straight away, straight off the packaging is, the back is upside down. If that's the only thing wrong with this, it's not going to be too bad. So, Warhammer 40K Fireteam is a tactical game of squad command for 2 players. Each player commands a fireteam of elite operatives sent to complete a vital mission behind enemy lines. To achieve your objectives and seize victory, you must make the most of your warriors' unique skills and stratagems, as well as their firepower. Do you have what it takes? So, these models are exactly the same as you would get in a normal game of Warhammer 40k, and it really is a gateway. So you play this, really enjoy it, playing it with your kids. This is great to get them into it. So if the kids are into this, they will be out drinking and spending the hours of the night out, because this hobby is so expensive. And on a serious note, it's a great hobby to be in. I used to like playing a lot of computer games, and that's great, but you don't have a lot to show for it. Whereas this hobby is fantastic. You can assemble models, customize them, paint them, play games. Even if you don't think you're a great painter, Necrons and Space Marines are a great way to start. So you could just paint the Necrons all silver. It's very, very basic. It doesn't take a lot. Here you see a close-up version of a Necron painted slightly bronzy, goldy kind of colour. They're not massively complicated. And same with the Marines. Yes, it looks like, there's a few fiddly bits there. Most of that's decal. You don't have to paint that. If you want to play an Ultramarine, just paint it blue and then pick out the face and practice. Everybody starts somewhere. So don't be alarmed, wow, I'll never paint like that. Because when I started, there was no YouTube. There was probably no internet. And I learned the hard way. I taught myself. And I eventually got there. But people starting out these days, there's loads of YouTube channels out there, including our own, that have hobby tips and tricks. And you quickly pick it up, jump years ahead of what I learnt before the internet. Like 2 thin coats, everybody's heard of that in the hobby. Well, way back when, my first ever Space Marine probably had 10 coats of paint on it. So I didn't know that. And that's just, just something easy like that will make a vast amount of difference. So, really recommend this hobby. Love it. Played it for years. It's a great way to meet people. Of course, you can play it on TTS, Tabletop Simulator Online. but going out, local clubs, even if you don't want to play in tournaments, you think that they're too competitive, local tournaments try to be quite friendly. I'm from the southwest of England, and I love local tournaments. Curtain Games in Crediton, please check them out. They're a fantastic store. Always have a great time there. Always have a great time there. I'm a little bit of a nervous person when I come to meet new people. A little voice in the back of my mind going, am I going to have a good game? Never not had a good game there. Always brilliant opponents. And even if you make a mistake, as long as you say to your person before you're playing, I'm not very au fait with this army, I haven't played many games, they go really, they go easy on you. I don't mean they don't table you. That may happen. Just saying they explain what they're doing, maybe their next move ahead. So don't be afraid to go out there and try it. Meet new people, have a great time. Plus, the store itself, Crediton Games, is a fantastic store. They're not paying me to say this. It's my own personal opinion. Really do rate them. Nice bunch of guys. Rob, who mainly runs the store, fantastic chap. Couldn't get a nicer guy. So, bit of a deviation there. But yes, fantastic hobby. At least you can say at the end of an evening's worth of painting, this is what I've got to show for it. Whereas a computer game, you don't really get that. So this is a fantastic game. I've always liked Warhammer 40k. Of course, the other big games from Games Workshop, AOS, equally as good. But for me, 40k is my main love. So in this box, it will tell you you have 5 Primaris Assault Intercessors. So if you have no idea what Space Marines are, these are the close combat basic Primaris troops. So these are the Space Marines are better than normal humans, genetically engineered guys. And you have 10 Necron Warriors, which are these robot-looking guys. They have got a bit of an interesting past. Used to be flesh and bone. Used to be quite of an ancient Egyptian kind of race. And to keep themselves alive, to get immortality, they've kind of paid the ultimate price, and now they're walking, talking machines. So that's them, and you get 3 Necron Scarab Swarms. You probably can't see them too much in the picture there, but we'll get to them in a bit. And as you can imagine, Scarabs, Swarms, they're robotic Scarab-like beetles. So you think it's a little bit one-sided. You've got 13 Necron models versus 5 Assault Intercessors. Surely it's a one-sided game. Marines are quite durable. So it's a fairly well-balanced game. I mean, if you're playing a normal game of Warhammer 40k, the points may be a bit different there, but they're relatively kind of the same. And this is basically a fun box. This isn't a serious tournament box by any stretch of imagination. It is a stripped-down version of Kill Team, which is a fairly stripped-down version of the regular 40k, but with a few additional rules. So you treat a model like a squad. So all the abilities you might get in a squad, you get in one model, and each one has a different ability. So this is going to be a bit more stripped down than that. We'll still have our data cards, our data sheets with all the details for each model on, but they won't have as many abilities as there is in Kill Team. Of course, we have the rulebook, which is 20 pages. We have 14 dice, and we have the 22 data cards, which I previously mentioned. Stratagem cards, which are unique abilities that each army can do in-game. You have to spend command points to make these things work, so you've got to think a little bit ahead of what you're doing, and it's there always to fall back on if you need to. And 12 mission cards, and 12 targets of opportunity cards, special issue war gear, tokens, and whatnot. So these are super easy to assemble. They are clipped together models. You don't really need glue, but I like to glue them anyway, and I would recommend plastic glue. So plastic glue like this from Games Workshop itself. Oops, I drop it. That's fantastic. Hold it by the nozzle and drop it on the box. Is safe. So if I did get it on the cardboard, it wouldn't do any damage. It only activates on, fine enough, plastic. And it really does bond it together. Whereas super glue kind of sits on the surface. Yeah, it sticks fairly well, but this stuff really bonds and hopefully seals some gaps. So if there's any gaps in models when you assemble them, you should get rid of them. It says no glue required. I personally do, but you really don't have to. These are super easy models to assemble. So enough ranting and raving for me and diverting from the contents of this box. Let's get into it. So, pretty well laid out box, straight from the go. And the reason there's a little cutout on the top tray there is to put your dice eventually. But it's really surprising how much you get in this box. So here's the 5 Space Marines. So if you've never seen a Space Marine before, this is what they look at. So you see they have little purity seals. Great detail on faces. A nice little mohawk there. Some brilliant models. Great detail. But if you ever paint them, and it's the first models you paint, washes are your friends, especially with Necrons. See all the little pistons and leg joints there. Lots and lots of detail, but don't worry, you don't have to pick them all out if it's your first ever game of 40k. Great for starting out. Those are those scarabs I was talking about. So futuristic, cyber, scarab beetles. As you do, you know, perfectly normal, right? So, kind of looks like the Terminator. Here's your bases and dice. Just standard 6-sided dice. That's what we normally use to play Warhammer. And you can see, once the models are assembled, it looks like you can even clip them in here so they don't get damaged, which is a brilliant idea. It's a bigger basis for your scarabs. These sections here, it looks like you can put the models in and they don't get damaged. I think it's a great idea. So you can actually use this box to carry the models. So like I said, this is its own game in its own right, but you can still use these models to play a regular game of Warhammer 40k. So if you first start off playing this and you want to move on to the bigger game, you totally can. Still use those models. Brilliant. But if you want to keep them in this box and only ever play this game, you can still just slot those models in there. So I'll get the cards out, put the main box to one side, and we'll talk about the actual game itself. So, I was mentioning Warhammer 40,000, which is the universe this is set in, and the other games that Games Workshop produce. So, that's the starter box for 40,000 itself. That's Kill Team, so it's a slightly more complicated version of this. So just a few more skills and things like that. So if you do enjoy this game and you find out you might want to go a bit more on the team side rather than a full-blown army, once again that can slot very nicely into the Warhammer 40,000 game itself. And then they have something called Age of Sigmar, which is the fantasy version. So you have your starter box here. So in this box you will have Cruel Boys, which are cunning, slimmer orcs than maybe you're used to seeing in computer games and things like that. And Stormcast Eternals, so armor-clad humans, the heroes, so to speak. And then Warcry, which is kind of like the Kill Team version. So this is the fantasy variant of teams running around performing missions. This game is totally random. You never know what mission you're going to have. We've done some battle reports on the channel, and they're fantastic. I've got a couple of warbands myself, and I really do rate the game. I think it's fantastic. Then we have Underworlds, more of a card and miniature based game, so you can apply different tricks and skills that each model can do. So sometimes you might have a bit of a gotcha moment, someone performs something and you can place a card and counteract what's happening there. And then finally we have Blitzbowl, which is a fantasy football game. So you've got Blood Bowl and you have Blitzbowl. So Blood Bowl is on a pitch, Blitzbowl is more like in a dungeon, so underground. But it's very much the same thing. If you like sports and you like miniatures, and you don't even have to get the ball. Sometimes you just want to beat the snot out of someone else's model. Totally can do that as well. And on the back it shows you the White Dwarf magazine, which they bring out once a month. So it can have rules, and it can have battle reports of either fantasy games or their futuristic game 40,000, and some nice painting tips and tricks. So there you go, bit in the background. So nothing really to do with this game, but just in case you are new into this hobby, check this out. So, the rulebook. So in the rulebook, it will tell you what the basics of the game is. So you do have a mission that you need to perform. It's not just straight out killing all the time. So you don't have to take out everybody's model on the other side. Sometimes you have an actual mission, depending on the card, what you need to perform. And as long as you perform the mission, you win the game. It's that simple. But one thing I did notice is there's no rulers. Because normally, in a game of Warhammer 40,000, we use tape measures and measure. And each of our data cards, the model we're looking at has an X number of movement, and we move that number of inches or up to using a tape measure. In this game, it's a lot more streamlined. They move on hexes. So when it says move 1, 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3 hexes, for example. So it'll tell you how to set up the game, where your deployment zones are, and it will tell you lines of sight, how you can shoot somebody, and it will tell you the basic way to play the game, so how a turn works. So you have your initiative phase, so who gets to go first, strategy phase, firefight phase, and end phase. And here it will show you an example of your data sheet of what weapon you have, the ranges, how many shots it may have, and what you need to roll to hit. It really is that simple. And a little bit of the fluff of the 41st millennium. The Necrons fully painted, as an example, and the Ultramarines. So they're not just Space Marines, they're Ultramarines, which is a certain chapter for the Space Marines. There's several different chapters, and you can even make your own. So you can have Blood Angels, which are red, Salamanders, which are green. You don't have to go for these blue guys, which are the Ultramarines. And also in this book, it contains rules for the other warbands that you can play Fireteam with. So these are other armies that you can get in Warhammer 40,000. So if you want to expand on this and make full-blown armies out of them, go for it. Tau. So here we have the stealth suits of the Tau. So they're quite elite and quite hard to hit, and one of their little flying shield drones. And then you have some of the regular humans, not just genetically engineered, which is the Astrum Militarium, which is basically the human armies. Basically, we have here some Eldar Harlequins. So Eldar are space elves, basically. And then we have some Orcs. Orcs, big green, tough guys who like lots and lots and lots and lots of shots. And the assembly guide on how to put the models together. So they're not too complicated. Most models come in two halves for the main part of the body. The arms, a backpack, and a head. Not too complicated. And the Necrons, a bit easier. So the body, two arms, and a head. They just slot into the base. Really, really easy. Like I said, you do not need glue. But if you want to stop those models from falling to pieces, if they get thrown around, a bit of abuse, it's always nice to put a little bit of glue on it. But you don't have to. I find it's just great to fill in tiny little gaps if they've got any when you clip them together. But it does say on the back of the box, challenge rating 2 out of 5, so they really are quite simple to put together. As long as you clip them off the sprue fairly tidily, it's not a problem. So there's a quick reference guide on the back of certain rules. So for example, ignores cover, overcharge, pistol, and rapid fire. So for example, in this game, ignoring cover is fairly simple. You ignore the cover. So if someone's in cover, it improves their armor save. With this, it ignores that trait, which is really good. Also in the quick reference, it tells you about which pages to find the initiative phase on, the strategy phase on, the firefight end phase. Your actions, so you can move, attack, disengage, and even wait. So, in the strategy phase, you may have stratagems that you can use. So I'll just dig those out a second and get rid of the wrinkly, crinkly plastic. So in a normal game of Fireteam, you have certain missions you must perform, which will be drawn randomly. So I'll zoom in a little bit so you guys can see it easier. There we go. So for example, in the end phase, enemy operatives with a combined wounds characteristic total of 24 have been taken out. You get 2 victory points. So obviously the harder the mission, the more victory points you get. That's quite difficult. So this is a 1-pointer. So in the end phase, enemy operatives with a combined wounds characteristic of 12 were taken out during this turn point. 1 victory point. So you get the idea. So you gain victory points, and whoever has the most victory points, funny enough, wins. So that's pretty straightforward. So it's a game that you could easily play in 45 minutes apparently, and you can rip through, not a problem. Or you can play a campaign. So if you're playing a game with the same opponent, and you decide you want to keep going and going and going and going, so rather than just having generic characters, what they like to do in this game and the Kill Team is to make each model a specific character. So give them a name. It feels like you have a bit of a backstory with them if they keep going through different campaigns, and they get to effectively level up. By leveling up means each time you play a campaign game and you win, you gain a special issue war gear, which is drawn randomly. So shuffle the cards, and you may get special issue war gear. Play this card after placing a friendly operative on the battlefield during setup. Give that operative a ploy token to remind you. That operative has +1 APL for the first turning point. So APL 1 becomes APL 2 and so on. And then you return this card to the deck at the end of the mission which has been used. So basically it means it gets an additional action, which is pretty useful. That's what APL stands for in this game. And same here, play this card after placing an operative on the battlefield during setup. Give that, add an extra 1 to the range characteristic of the weapons the operative is armed with. Has a range characteristic of 2 greater for this mission. It's pretty good. It's a targeted scope, greater range, things like that. Play this card during the firefight phase. Before or after an operative's action, pick 1 friendly operative and roll 1 dice. Remove that many wound counters from that operative. So after all of these have been used, you have to return these cards back to the deck. So basically, that's like a med pack. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But in addition to getting those, you also gain special operations. So these are, they're not missions. You don't get points for them. But what you do get is, if you apply by these rules, you gain what's on the back. So you get an asset which is always in place. So it's kind of like a better version of the equipment. So for example, this is a towel symbol. So XV 25 pilots are lone wolves. So there's a little bit of a fluff about them. So that is specifically Tau. That's specifically orcs, because you can see the orc symbol there. Necrons, Imperium, Eldar, and that is Space Marines. So these are quite special cards. So for example, subtract 1 to a minimum of 1 from the attack dice characteristics of weapons friendly operatives are armed with while they are visible to another friendly operative during this special operation. So if you perform that, you have to flip it over. So when you gain this command asset, so you have to gain it by turning it over, achieving it. Pick Shazvir Quick Strike or 1 XV25 Stealth Battlesuit Shazwi. Yeah, that's right. I'm down with the Tau lingo. Give that operative a ploy token to remind you after the last operative has been placed on the kill zone during setup. Pick one other friendly operative. You can swap positions of that operative. I gave you the operative and give the operative you gave this command asset to. So basically you swap, which means you're a bit more tactical. So if you think you've got someone who's going to snipe you out, you deployed in a bit of a bad position, you can totally shift around. That's just one example. So we'll go with, let's go with a Marine, shall we? So the antagonist picks one of the operatives and gives them a ploy token as a reminder. That operative adds 1 to the APL and adds 5 to the wounds characteristic during the special operation. After the mission ends, if that operative is on the kill zone, and if the game would be a draw, do not use any tiebreakers, the antagonist wins. But it does unlock, Sergeant Gideon now has APL of 3 instead of 2, so 1 extra action permanently. So whereas the special issue war gear gives you some cool stuff, it is once return this card. Whereas these unlocks special abilities for each model, which is pretty good, I find. So it makes them feel more of a character, and then you care more about them if they die in the game. You're like, oh, that was a great ability I could be using right now. It's gone. So you don't get that quite so much with Warhammer 40,000 unless you're playing in a campaign. Each game is separate in its own right. So if a model's taken out, it's taken out, it's gone. With this, you made it so far, you've unlocked abilities. If it gets taken out, it's a bit of a big deal. So you get that more in Kill Team. So this is, like I said, a slightly watered down version of Kill Team. But if that kind of thing appeals to you, more of a campaign style, Kill Team is probably for you. If you want to use massive battles with lots of tanks, lots of troops, the regular game of 40k is probably more for you. And each team is laid out very much like this. So you have Sergeant Gideon with the Space Marines, a Assault Intercessor. So they all are Assault Intercessors. So the action point is how many actions they can do. The 3 on the move, funny enough, is the 3 on the move. Defense, pretty easy to work out. And the wounds, they're quite high wounds values, whereas in the game of 40k, the normal game, there are only 2 wounds. So it makes it feel like they're a bit more survivable in this. They're not just going to get shot off the table. And the SV is the saves. So it's a 4+, you need to roll a dice on a 4+, they survive. So it will tell you underneath if they have any special abilities. Commanders, sergeants, special characters generally do. And then you have the weapons they're armed with. So Sergeant Gideon has a pistol as well as a chainsword, and so does regular Assault Intercessors. But you do notice his pistol is slightly better because his is a plasma pistol. So his damage characteristic is better. So on a regular hit, he is doing 4 damage. On a critical hit, he's doing 6 damage. Very good. So it tells you what the range is of the weapon, how many dice you roll to attack, and what you need to hit somebody. So in this case, he needs a 3 to hit somebody, which is pretty nice. So these rules are quite similar to the Warcry rules as well. So each model will have the armor value, how many attack dice they generally use, things like that. So in this particular case, these guys have 2 actions they could do. So they could move for 1 AP and then attack, or they can attack range, for example, twice, because it costs them the AP. So that's just an example of the Space Marines. In this box, I will go into the Tau or the Orcs for now, because there isn't any in this particular box. But it's great that they give you the cards for them. So if you can pick up those models really cheap somewhere, why not? Or if you want to, just pretend that your Marines are Orcs for this particular game. I'm sure your opponent won't mind. And just have a bit of fun. And if it's something you enjoy, go out there and pick up some Orcs. You know, it's a nice start. It really is. into the world of 40k. So I will talk about Necrons as soon as they're in this box. So we have the Necron Warrior with Gauss Flayer. And then we have the Gauss Reaper, which is the heavy weapon. So the one looks like it's got 2 barrels. And then, let's see if we can get them all in the same picture, would be nice. Your little Scarab Swarms. They're going to be running around. Okay, so I'll pan back a little bit so you can get them all in there. So the Scarab Swarms have 10 wounds each, because there's lots of tiny little gribbly models on that base. Whereas the other warriors have 8 wounds each. So earlier on when I was saying, yeah, there is more warriors, more Necrons and Intercessors, they have half the number of wounds, and their save isn't so good. They're 5 up save across the board, so 5, 5, 5, whereas the Marines have 4 up because their armour is slightly better. But there is more of them, so there is more shots to shoot those Marines, for example. Okay, so that's basically how they are laid out. They've got their special abilities, if they've got any, and then the weapon profiles. So finally, the last pack of cards. What do we get in that? We get the layout for your teams. So your Orcs, your Marines, Astromilitarium, Necrons, Harlequins, Tau, and then you have your mission-specific rules and the layout. So each one very much reads like this: mission rules, something special, scoring rules, and victory. So in this particular mission, called Power Up, mission rules are: operatives within 1 hex of an objective their player controls that is not powered can make the following action. So it costs 1 AP, 1 action point. Power Up, place a mission token next to the objective, and that's within 1 hex of the operative making this action. That objective is now powered. Friendly operatives within 1 hex of the powered objective you control have the defense characteristic increased by 1. Discard all mission tokens from the kill zone in each end phase. And you have the scoring rules. At the end of each firefight phase, players score 1 victory point for each objective they control, and an additional victory point for each powered objective they control. So you can power up and you get more points for it as well. The mission ends after 3 turning points. When the mission ends, players with the most victory points win. If the players have the same number of victory points, the result is a draw. So each one is slightly different with the special thing. This is loot for 1 action point. Place a mission token next to the objective, that's within 1 hex. Discard all mission tokens into the end phase. Yeah, okay, so looting, uplink, just picking a couple at random here. That one doesn't have any at all, so dual strike. There we go. Pretty basic. So on the back of each of your teams, you'll have your own specific team abilities. So take aim, change the range characteristic of friendly operative hot shot last guns to 10 before modifiers until the end of the current turning point. Fix bayonets, which is quite good fluff wise. They very much do that. Add 1 to the attack characteristics of friendly operative weapons with range characteristic of 1 until the end of the current turning point. So basically close combat stuff. Slightly better. Take cover. First time in the current turning point, an enemy operative makes an attack AP action. During that activation, each time a friendly operative suffers damage, reduce that damage by 1 to a minimum of 1. Because funny enough, they're taking cover. So each one has something slightly different. Yeah, the orcs are going to worry about taking cover, are they? Just going to run up and murder stuff. So they're all slightly different. All have their slightly different specialist rules. So now we've talked about the basic rules and what the models look like. Here are your tokens. So you have wound tokens, you have mission specific tokens like bombs and things like that. You have your turn token, so who is the current active player. It's a pretty good set. I mean, you've got couple of Space Marine tokens, Necron tokens, and this is what the board itself looks like. So like I said, the basic game of Warhammer 40k, you have to use a tape measure, whereas this is hexes. The board is pretty nice. See, artwork is pretty detailed. You see some puddles there, some cracks, nice glowing effects. It's pretty nice. It's not a clean layout, you know, it's not like a nicely cut lawn or something. It is a battle zone. So there's crates everywhere, craters, bombs have gone off, cracked ceramics and concrete. And then on the other side is a bit more Necron-y. So you've got your Necron like circuit paths and things like that, because they are essentially walking robots. So that's what the table looks like normally before you put your models down. So everything you need to play this game is in this box, and for once I could get it all back in the box afterwards. It's never an easy task. So this game isn't the cheapest, I have to admit. So it's retailing for about 50, 55, maybe even £60 kind of region. And with that, if you wanted to go straight into Warhammer 40k, you could get yourself quite a lot of models. It's not a bad game in its own right. It's pretty good, and it's a nice starter to get anybody who's semi-interested in the world of 40,000. Kind of the toe in the door kind of thing. The artwork's nice, the box feels good, the stock is really good, and if you didn't just want the straight out kill mission, regular missions, a one-off game, non-campaign games is what I'm saying, you might not get really your money's worth. But if you really enjoyed the basic game and you thought, yeah, I want to play my brother a few times, or my sister, or my mum and dad, and get a campaign going, I think you can have a lot of fun. You can have several hours out of it. If not, you might just want to play a couple games, 45-minute games, and there's not really much to it. So it is real easy to pick up. The rules are super easy to comprehend within at least one round, and you can start unlocking cards which add another element of diversity to it and makes it a bit more complicated, but nothing that no one can't get their head around. It's okay, but I don't think the value is amazing. I would rather get a kill team box, and yes, there is a bit more rules. For the first time people in there is a bit more rules, and it might put them off. But if they seriously like the models, yeah, they would get into the game. They would definitely get into the game. But I understand why this is aged at 12 now, because it's not massively complicated. Kill Team itself, they might have to be a bit older to comprehend some more of the synergies, a bit more of the rules. But that being said, I have seen several 12-year-olds play a regular game of 40k. So why not go straight into 40k? You don't have to play massive armies. You can just get them a squad of Space Marines, which isn't very expensive. And if you want to play, let's say, Necrons, for example, and you're teaching them squad versus a squad, doesn't matter who wins, who loses, just teach them the basic rules. I think you'll get more value out of it. Not dissing the game itself, I understand they have to price it approximately at this because cardstock isn't cheap. It is well laid out, it is well thought out, you know, and the models aren't bad. You know, you've got 13 Necrons and you have 5 Marines. So 5 Marines of these Assault Marines, brand new. Yeah, I mean, they've been out in the new Imperium magazine, so there's a few out there. If you manage to pick up a pack from Imperium, I think Imperium was something like £8 or something, you get a couple of packs of the Necron Warriors from Imperium magazine. Yeah, I understand where they get approximately £50 from, and that's the cheaper end of the market, the new market. If you bought them new from, you know, a Games Workshop site directly, they're going to be a bit more expensive. So I understand why it's £50, because you've got your mat, you've got your cards, dice, miniatures, it's not a bad price. I'm not knocking what they're asking for in this box. I'm just saying if you wanted to start somebody off and they were going to spend their pocket money, I'm thinking of people approximately 12 years old to play this game, they can get more models for the money, unless they want to go halves with one of the parents or siblings. So it's not a bad price for the box in itself, but if you wanted to get them into the hobby, I would say use that money to buy them more miniatures. Or maybe it's just because I love miniatures so much, I want more miniatures. Always more miniatures. So yes, it's a good game. It is real easy to rip through several games of this in a night. And the campaign setting is okay. It takes you a few games in. But I think after about 10 games, you kind of might lose its longevity to play this thing. So it's not bad as an introduction, and that's what it's designed for. So if you're thinking about teaching your kids to play, or a brother or a sister, yeah, go for it. Like I said, it's not massively cheap. You can probably get more models out there. And the core rules to Warhammer 40,000 are free online anyway, you get a free PDF. So, in my personal opinion, I wouldn't bother with this unless you're thinking about getting specifically into Kill Team. And this is the baby brother of Kill Team. And Kill Team kind of is the baby brother of 40k. But very much like this game, there are more wounds on those characters than you would normally get in the game of Warhammer 40,000. And their actions are slightly different. But yeah, it's a bit of fun, lovely models. Why not teach somebody about the world of Warhammer 40,000? Thanks for listening to my rants. Hopefully they made sense. If this video is your kind of thing, please hit the like button. And if you haven't done already, please subscribe for some more great content. So we try to have battle reports from Aeronautica, AOS, 40k, Marvel Crisis Protocol seems to be pretty popular at the moment, especially in our area, and you certainly see more of that. We have hobbies, tips and tricks, how to make terrain. We really enjoy making terrain on a low budget as well, so to get people really started into the game. And we sometimes do battle reports and a little bit of background about our very own game, Outlands. So please check that out in the description below. And stay safe, everybody. Catch you in the next video.